I'm still here. I'm going to mute and disconnect
Okay.
a little bit.
Thank you. Hello, folks. Welcome. We're going to give just a couple of minutes for folks to get on and get settled in and have their audio and video connected if they are so inclined. So I've got 12:30. We will get started momentarily. Hope you're all doing well. Happy March. Glad we survived February. Warm weather was nice. It's gone away already, although hopefully it'll be back in another week and be here to stay. I am ready for time change, ready for weather change, and hopefully we will be there sooner rather than later. Okay, I think we got everybody that we're going to have at the beginning here. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Town Hall number 3. Some of you may have attended the other session or two, or at least part of it, and welcome back. If you hear something different than what I said in the first 2 sessions, don't be surprised. I'm not walking through a script, as is certainly the typical way that I'll approach these things. I'm not very good at on staying on the script. Jenna can testify to that. What you write, I probably am not even going to read out loud. I will improvise more times than not. But I wanted to kind of talk to you, not necessarily off the cuff, but from the heart, and talk about some of the considerations that we've got going on. We have asked you all to contribute some questions that you may have, and we've gotten a number of those questions, and that's great. And I'll give you an opportunity to ask some additional questions, make some additional comments today. But what I didn't want to do is stand here in my office and read a bunch of answers to you, because you can read better than I can. So I do want to talk through some considerations and why we are talking about bringing the band back together and what that means in my mind, and what you can expect going forward as we try to get back to some degree of, I don't even want to say normal. I don't know what normal means anymore. So we get into whatever the future is going to hold for us as a college, as a faculty and staff, etc. So I want to step back in time a little bit, if I can, walk you through where we've been over the last year. And it's hard to believe, but it was about a year ago that a number of us, several of us, were in Raleigh, and the first case in North Carolina had been announced. And that really began the snowball that became COVID, living, breathing, thinking, dreading, hating COVID. Over the last year, but certainly for several months, all we did was think about how we're going to make changes. What does that mean? When will we be back? You know, a year ago, I remember standing around with some other folks in Raleigh, and there was some suggestion that they were going to cancel sporting events and, you know, March Madness and all this stuff. And several of us, me included, said, that's not going to happen. We're not ever going to cancel March Madness. Well, guess I was wrong, right? So I've been wrong about a lot of things over the last year, and thankfully we've been right about a few things too. So a year ago we started this journey, and we have basically been in some modified operations since about that time. I think we sent everybody home somewhere around March 20th, give or take. The only reason that stands out is because that's my birthday. And I was thinking, what a way to celebrate the birthday, COVID related. But we are closing in on a year. Things have changed over the last few months, especially as we continue to look at the progress that's being made with the immunizations, with the declining numbers, at least it has been declining numbers of COVID infections. However, that's leveled off a little bit. So we're not out of the woods, and we're not done with the masking and the washing and the, waiting 6 feet apart. So we've still got a lot of work to do ahead of us, but I think it's time that we start to plan on what the future looks like and trying to bring the band back together, as we have said, and bring more folks back on campus and more activities back on campus. So let's talk about what the last year has done for us enrollment and financially. So enrollment wise, we were down about 6%, a little more than 6.5% in the fall. We're down about 7% or so in the spring. So holding pretty steady fall to spring. And that is much better than some other colleges in the nation and even in the state, but it's about average in the state. We were a little better than average for a while, but we're about average of where the other colleges ended up, at least for credit enrollment. And obviously there's some continuing education enrollment hits that we've taken and some other things that have been problematic. So that's not a sustainable path to be down and continuing down. But not only that, I don't want it to be just about the numbers here, because every student that we don't have is a student that's being left behind, at least temporarily. And we know that first-time students are basically abandoning community colleges in large numbers. That does not bode well for us going forward. And we also know that that our Black and brown students have been hit particularly hard by COVID and the downturn in community college enrollment. And that's especially true for African American males. And so we have populations, not just a population, it's not just one race, but we certainly see some hits in some populations that are very important to us moving forward. It's populations that we are focused or should be focused on, that we want to make sure that we are not leaving them behind. And, you know, having online courses is leaving a number of folks behind. And we've got to make sure that we address that. But beyond the personal people aspect, which is of utmost importance, there's also a financial piece of this. You may or may not know that in this year's budget, we received, and I'm going to talk in round numbers for you because, you know, it's easier to remember for my little brain, and it makes it a little easier to figure when you're doing some quick calculations in your head. But we were up about $1 million budgetarily this year because of the growth at the college, the growth trajectory that the college had been on. That's great, except we've lost it for next year. You may know that we are funded in arrears. So the downturn in enrollment this year won't really affect this year's money. It is actually going to affect us going forward. So the $1 million we got, thank goodness we didn't put it into a lot of recurring costs, because it looks like it's going away. One of the things that the presidents and the trustees association has done is put a couple of things forward as a consensus agenda. It's called our consensus legislative priorities. And that's not new to this year. That happens with regularity here every year in North Carolina. And it lists a couple of things that we are really asking the legislature for. One of those this year is what we're calling stabilization funds. The K-12 system and the university system has called it hold harmless money, or hold harmless funds. That has some kind of negative connotation. So we're being really fancy and we're calling it stabilization funds, but it's the same thing essentially. And it's not unprecedented in North Carolina, because we're hit by tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, other things from time to time, especially hurricanes. There have been some opportunities to be held harmless for colleges that have been hit by hurricanes and had some negative weather effects, et cetera. But the hold harmless money, the stabilization money, let me get my rhetoric correct, amounts to about $61 million that we're asking for. That would not bring us back to 100%. That would not get us back on the $1 million that we are likely to lose. It would get us back about 3/4 of the way, maybe, depending upon which estimate you look at, and get us back to about maybe $750,000, give or take. That's not getting a great reception in Raleigh right now. That doesn't look like it's going to hold up, but we don't know. We certainly are in a favored position right now in Raleigh, maybe even more so than we have been in recent years. So we are cautiously optimistic, or maybe I'm not even cautiously optimistic at this point. I'm probably slightly pessimistic that this is going to come to fruition. I haven't lost all hope yet, but we'll see what happens with the money. You may also know that the state is in pretty good shape. So that's why I have any optimism about that at all. If you look at the economic advisor's projection from last May, the state really overperformed those projections in the neighborhood of about $4.2 billion, a little over $4 billion. That's with a B dollars. So the state has some money with which to work. But one of the things that the state has done really well, and in my conversations with a few legislators, they have brought this up, and that is, thank goodness we had a rainy day fund so that we could weather the storm and we weren't in the shape that some other states are in. So we're probably going to continue to hold on to a big chunk of money. That's great. It means they won't be spending it on certain things, and maybe the hold harmless for K-12 and the universities and our stabilization funds may take the hit in that. I don't know. We'll see. But we do have some money in the state, and we are in a favored position. The number one legislative priority really is pay raises for faculty and staff. And we've asked for 5% to get us back on par with the state employees. The universities and K-12 and some others have gotten raises in the recent past, and community colleges were not included. And so since we haven't had a budget in a while, and I've said this at the other two town halls, bless Susan Gentry's heart, she's trying to explain a budget process to me that is not normal, hasn't been normal. There's been no budget since I've been in North Carolina. And we have been dealing with COVID money and COVID expenses and other things. So this is by far not normal. But we are still in good graces, if you will, with the budget priority makers. And we've asked for 5%. Don't go out and spend the money yet, but there have been a couple of bills that have been introduced that would entertain a 7% pay raise for faculty and staff of the community college system. So that's good. They're thinking about giving us more than we asked for. Can't go wrong with that, right? But we will hope that they will at least give us what we've asked for. And you all know that we've done a bonus that will be payable soon. And then we also, thanks to the Board of Trustees, have done a local pay adjustment and salary plan adjustment for staff. And I don't think many colleges in North Carolina have done that part. Some have done bonuses. A good number have done bonuses this year. So we're thankful for that, and anything that the state's doing would be on top of what we have already approved here locally. So, there are some positive things going on. So budget is kind of, I feel like I've said this to the other town hall groups, that I give you a positive and then I yank it away with a potential negative. Another positive thing is that thanks to all of you, we have reinvented many of the activities here at the college. You guys have done a tremendous work reinventing classes, reinventing recruitment, financial aid processing, advising of students. The staff has been here largely over the last year. They've been teleworking to some extent, but they have been here. And many of our staff have been here every day. And many of the leadership team members, I have teleworked in short little spurts, but only really a couple of full days. And that's been the case for many of our deans and our staff and our allied health faculty and nursing faculty and welding and machining. I see Thomas is there. Thomas has done some different work, but he's been in the building many times. I've gone over to Currituck. So we've had people that have been in and out and doing and reinventing and being involved in the day-to-day activities of the college. But the activity level has been much reduced, as you all know. So we have done a great job. The good part of this is we've done a fantastic job of getting better at online teaching, online delivery of assistance, online processing, online everything. The threat aspect of that is that so has every other college. So have the other 3,000 higher ed institutions in the United States. And there are about 1,200 community colleges. Every single one of them have probably gotten better at all the things that we've gotten better at. We've certainly learned lessons that we're going to continue on into the future, but we also have developed more threats. We have realized more threats than we used to, because many of those colleges weren't interested in, didn't do online, weren't really good at it when they did it. But as you all know, we're going through our strategic planning sessions now. And one of the things that separates us, there's a question, and this is the Bagwellian paraphrase of that question, but is what separates COA from other colleges that do similar things? And the answer really has been around being available, being part of the community, being somebody that I know, somebody that I run into in the grocery store with regularity. So we are family, if you will, to use our terminology here, to our 7 communities, our 7 counties, our region. And they like having us here. They like being able to stop in and see us. They like having that personal touch. And of course, that means that that's our competitive advantage. If we move everything online and keep it online, we lose that. We lose what makes us special. And we're going to get, as I said, increased competition from other colleges. For-profits are going to come back into the picture more. But it's hard to compete with from a resource perspective with the Western Governors of the world, the Southern New Hampshires, even community colleges like Maricopa District that has a tremendous amount of resources and do online learning very, very well. So those competitions, competitive folks in the environment are just going to be hanging on and trying to look for students wherever they can find them, and online is going to be a place where they can find them. We've got to make sure that we have a strong online program, hybrid program, but let's don't lose our competitive advantage that we have over the others in that people know us, people trust us. COA is a trusted brand, and we need to make sure we keep that going. So again, positive and negative. We've gotten better, others have gotten better. As we look at where we've been and what we've done and how we've changed, we've certainly learned lessons that we don't want to ignore. We certainly have learned how to serve nursing, allied health folks better at a distance with some testing and delivery of materials. We've learned how to do things in SSEM differently. And I think we need to take what has worked and build on it, and let's get away from those things that have not worked. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping enrollment steady. I mean, it's not great, 6 and 7%. It's not great, but it's certainly better than it could have been. But again, over the North Carolina, 58 colleges were about average. Only about 4 colleges have grown in that time, but there have been some colleges that have grown over the last year. Their enrollment has increased. Much of that, I hear, is due to retention efforts, which is fantastic, and we need to make sure that we're doing those things too and learning the lessons that we need to learn. So that's a good news, bad news type situation too. With respect to why are we talking about bringing the band back together now, I tell it this way. I basically made the decision, with input obviously, but made the decision to allow folks to come on our campus early in the semester for immunization. So we had some immunization clinics on campus, and that was for a couple of reasons. One, it was to be the community's college. They ask us for our help. We need to stand up and help when we can, and certainly we did that. But there was also an ulterior motive, and that was to make hopefully more vaccinations, immunizations available to our folks. I think it worked out that way. We've had a couple of clinics that are unique, have been focused on COA. We were able to get in on some of the public vaccination times because of the way that they just did it and allowed us to step in. Ella did a survey through HR, Ella and Haley, and did a survey through HR a few weeks ago, and we asked about some additional testing that we were trying to bring online and your interest in that. And also, oh, by the way, how many of you have been vaccinated? And we didn't have 100% return on that. We never do. No survey ever gets 100% for the most part. But of those that responded, 68% of you had immunizations, at least one of the two. And now the Johnson & Johnson vaccination is out, which is only a one-shot deal. So we've had a large number of our faculty and staff that have already availed themselves of the opportunity to get the immunization. And that's your call. You have to decide whether you're taking that or not, but it has been made available, and we are working on other opportunities to make additional COA opportunities available to get that. And we are entering the point where we are in the priority. So you really should be able to get that shot, those shots at your, I won't say at your leisure, because you're still going to have to jump through hoops and go to CVS or Walgreens or a clinic, and hopefully we could continue to have a few clinics on our sites that would allow us to come to work and get our immunizations. That's very different from some other colleges. I've told the leadership team a few times. I talk to presidents pretty regularly. The presidents have at least informal discussions now pretty much every week, and we are way ahead of many parts of the state and certainly other community colleges in how many folks have been vaccinated. A number of our colleagues across the state have been back to work. They stopped teleworking, mostly some of them, back in August, September, October, and they've had no clinics on campus and very few people who have been immunized at all. We had several thousand people come through our campus, and I was telling some other presidents that, a lot of our folks were able to get vaccinated in that process. And the only people on their campuses that had been vaccinated were the ones who were able to go into clinics in the community and met their community's guidelines, 70 plus, 65 plus, et cetera. One of the presidents just told me last night that he's finally able to get his first vaccination next week at a local Walgreens. Because of the change in priority. So they're just now getting immunizations where we've been, some of our folks have had them a couple of months ago now, and we are way beyond the 2 weeks after our second shot to be as protected as we can be. So we are certainly still mindful, though, that that's good news. The bad news is we can't get lax about wearing our mask, doing the safety precautions that we know to work or we believe to work. But we see that people are running head first into the brick wall that is COVID again. I think you probably saw, if you looked at the news, that I believe it was Texas that has now sort of given up on the mask mandate. I read in the paper this morning that our commissioners of Pasquotank brought it up about coming out of the emergency protocol here locally. They did not, because they're looking at some additional information. So that's a worry. That's a threat. That's a problem if we try to recover too quickly and then we end up falling back. We want to make sure that we have some standard progress, some periodicity. I can't talk this afternoon. I apologize. To what we're doing, so that we're not all rushing back at one time. In fact, what we're hoping to do is to continue to increase the number of folks we have on campus, the need to bring students back, and the opportunity to bring students back will start to increase. So after spring break, you're going to see more opportunities to bring folks back, have some just things on campus to get more people used to let us test the waters, if you will, on how we can try to keep people safe. Because the last thing we want to do is to bring everybody back at one time and then realize we haven't thought through what's happening. So faculty, we need you to come back and practice teaching and meeting with people so that we can make sure that you have the resources that you need to stay safe, that we've thought through our space utilization. Staff have been here meeting with folks, but if we need to make office modifications or classroom modifications, we need to know that so that we can start, continue. We won't be starting. We've been doing this for a year, but again, many of our classes that could meet online have met online. But as we continue to try to bring folks back, we need to make sure that we've thought about as many of the possibilities as we can. So I will open it up for questions here in just a couple of minutes, but and I'll go through some threads, if you will, that I've identified in some of the questions that have been asked thus far. But you can see that we have sort of this, plus minus opportunity ahead of us. Can we predict what the next 6 months is going to look like as we continue to try to gear up so that we are coming back fall to whatever that will look like? It might not look like fall of 19, but it should look more like fall of 19 than fall of 20 is our hope at this point, and what we're trying to plan toward so that we can start to get that out. We know that we have students that are postponing their college experience because they don't want to be online. We know that we have freshmen potentially, that haven't been in class in a year plus. They've been doing their high school largely online. We are dangerously close to having a new generation of community college and university students who have to relearn what it means to be in groups and to be working side by side with their classmates. So one other piece before I get into the questions and the Q&A and the comment time. We can't, even though we've done some good things, we've done some great things, we've done some fantastic things that we're going to carry on, and part of that with the faculty has been mentoring each other with online classes, and we've gotten better. As I said, we're doing some innovative things. We're doing some innovative things in SSEM and behind the scenes and back office functions that we want to continue. But I can tell you that everything that I believe and think about community colleges tells me in my gut that we've got to get back on the horse, as it were. We got to bring the band back together. We can't financially take another year like we've had this year. Now, if we get stabilization funds and some other things, then we'll see. But, meeting our mission, being here for our 7-county service area, we've got to get back to some degree of in-person connectivity with our community, having people on campus, being able to bring folks and entertain conversations. I was kind of half joking with some of the leadership team folks before this session to say, I know that anxiety medications have probably been more prescribed over the last year. People are going to be anxious about what changes we're bringing about and what the world's going to look like in another 6 months. And, you can count me among those people too. It's an anxious time. We've got folks coming, and what brought that up is we've got folks coming to campus from the Belk Foundation, EdNC, Golden Leaf Foundation, another college. One of our K-12 partners will be on the Eden and Chowan campus this evening. And this is the first time we've done anything like that in a year. So, it feels weird to have that many people gathering for some opportunities to learn about community colleges and partnerships in Northeast North Carolina. But that time is coming. It's time to get back to those things. My time here has been all COVID almost. 15 months in the job, most of it is COVID time, so it feels like forever. But I don't know this area the way I should. I don't know it because I've not been to festivals. I've not been to weekend events. I've not been to a lot of evening events that a president and others would be attending, but we're starting to see those come back. And I said this, I don't think I told this story in the second town hall, but But Michelle, I see Michelle. I don't think Robin Zinsmeister. Oh, Robin is on here. She just don't have her camera on. But Robin Zinsmeister, Michelle Waters, and I attended an economic development session. I won't say an announcement, but something that's going on in Currituck County. And that was Friday evening. And, you know, it was probably what, 30 people, Michelle, give or take, 35 folks there, largely not wearing masks, I might add. Many of them have been immunized. So here comes the COA contingent. We all sort of had our mask on along with a couple other organizations, but most of the folks didn't. And they're getting back to that normalcy. But I was a little freaked out by that. You know, I was a little unnerved by the fact that, you know, we're getting in those sessions and, you know, people are not wearing masks. And of course, we'll be the culinary students, and Chef Leslie will be preparing some food for us tonight. And of course, we'll be sitting around without mask on because it's kind of hard to eat through a mask, I've discovered over the last year. But, you know, it's time to come together and make sure that we are doing what we need to do to bring the resources to COA in Northeast North Carolina. So questions, you can type some questions into the chat, or I'll give you the microphone and give you the opportunity to ask them. But let me just kind of address a few threads while you're thinking of your questions. One of them, and a very important one that I see in some of the questions, is, don't you care about us anymore? Aren't you worried for our health? Yes, I care. And yes, I'm worried. But I think, as I said, and I've tried to lay out here, we've got to get back to some degree of normalcy. We've got to make sure that we are providing vaccinations, testing, opportunities for those who want to avail themselves of the immunizations and the testing. But we can't take another year like we've had. We've got to get back on the horse, as it were. And I think we've got to do it safely. We're going to do it slowly. We're going to learn the lessons that we can learn and put some stopgap measures in place. But many of us have been here pretty much every day, as I said, and you know, we're not unsafe in that. We're still going to practice the 3 W's that we've all learned, and we're going to make sure that we're not just throwing the floodgates open like it appears that Texas is doing or considering. And so I don't know that that's a wise decision, but we're not going to throw caution to the wind. The other is, you know, online learning is working. Why not continue to do it? Well, it is working to some extent, but we've also lost enrollment. People don't want to take just online courses. We've had a lower success rate over the last year, not tremendously so. So I'm kind of proud that we haven't dropped any more than we have, but it has dropped. And that's also not a sustainable opportunity to continue. Dean had a competing meeting today, and I'm going to try to paraphrase what he's doing, some data digging for us. But bottom line is, if you take the number of folks that we've reduced in enrollments and you take the lower success rates, we've had, I think the number was 500 fewer successful course completions over the last year, which means every one of those is a person, an individual who's not able to move forward in their journey. And certainly we had unsuccessful people before. We're going to have unsuccessful people going forward, but we got to make sure that we are learning the lessons, doing what we can to continue. So have we done well? Yes. Are we on a sustainable pathway? I don't think so. We've got to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the students that we are called to serve. And then I would say, you know, one of the threads is, well, and this has been a thread all along, by what authority, by what basis of data mining are you making the decisions? And I would say that we're doing the best we can with what we know. You all know that the guidance has changed a number of times. We see the states, including North Carolina, backing off on some COVID restrictions and other things, and we are going to start following suit to make sure that we bring folks back. It's not a perfect science. Actually, science is not a perfect science, right? It is an iterative process. We continue to test hypotheses, we move things forward, and then obviously we have sometimes 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But we have to make sure that we are mindful of what the need is and how we can how we can get it done. So let me stop real quick right there and give you time to ask questions, post them in the chat. Valerie is monitoring those comments that you have. Other thoughts, please share. Leadership team, if there's something that I failed to say after my third time going through this that you think I need to repeat or say in a different way, let me know. Folks, what can I address for you? COVID, budget, COVID, enrollment, whatever. I will say to you that you may know, and I don't think I said this, I may be repeating myself at this point, folks, I apologize, that we had what was called a budget reversion back in January because the receipts of the 58 colleges weren't living up to the expectations, and that's not unheard of. And we got the figure last night or today, last night, I guess it was, that we have another reversion where we have to send back some additional money to the state, and heard that there could even be a third reversion, that we could in the fourth quarter have to send additional money back to the state. So this is this is an indicator that we've got to do something a little different and make sure that we are prepared for the future.
Dr. Bagwell, can I say something?
Please.
Based on the last two town hall meetings and some of the discussions we've had, I know that a lot of faculty are concerned about what we're going to be doing and how we're going to hold classes. And I want you to all know that we have thought about this almost nonstop in terms of making sure that we offer a variety of types of courses that our students want to take. We are also looking at expanding some courses for the summer to see if anybody would like to come face to face. And we're talking about perhaps students who are attending a university and want to pick up some summer school classes. We've also been discussing, and I have asked you questions about technology and what we want to have our classrooms look like. And I want you to know that we have been working with Wayman to identify some standard classrooms with upgraded technology, which is why I asked you the 3-question survey this week to see if there were things like the smart boards that we could put into hibernation. But apparently at least 20 people love smart boards. So I guess we're going to have to find a way to keep them hooked up. So I wanted you to know that we are trying to be as transparent as possible, and the deans I know are communicating with faculty. So if you do have any questions about any of those kinds of things related to schedules or teaching or technology, if you don't get your answer right now, if you wanted to talk to me or ask a question or talk to your chair or your program coordinator, I want you to know that we are thinking about what to do with that to best serve our students.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. So we do want to make sure that we are getting as much feedback and input as possible, and we are planning to make some significant investments in the technology and making sure that we are ready for the next COVID. Hopefully it never comes, but we also can use it to help reach out to the students and do some amazing things. I did see that Karen Alexander, excuse me, I just pulled it back up. Karen Alexander said web-based classes, I think that's what it's, WBC, web-based classes, is that what that refers to? Are working well for me, and I'm glad. I think that's great, and it's working well for a number of our students. But we got to make sure we don't leave other students behind, because not everybody does well, as you all know, in web-based learning. It's not for every faculty member. Some of you have had to learn on the fly, and we've had mentoring going on, and I think that's fantastic. And we've learned a lot of valuable lessons. Hey, I'm a big believer in online and web-based and hybrid courses, but we've got to make sure that we are serving everyone and not leaving folks behind, and making sure it's working for them. And like I said, we've done pretty well, but we have lost some students, and some students are deferring their education that we want to make sure that we don't continue to leave behind. Other questions or comments or anything else from other leadership team members?
There's a question in the chat regarding the recent ransomware attacks on community colleges and what COA's plan is in dealing with that if something were to happen. Do we have a preventative plan, I guess?
I didn't hear the first part of that for some reason. Valerie, can you repeat that?
There's a question in the wake of recent ransomware attacks on community colleges and other schools in the districts. Do we have a plan in place for security and backup?
Yes, thank you for that. Now I sound like the governor's press conference. Thank you for that question. So I've listened to far too many of those. We're working on that. That's an important thing that we've talked about at the leadership team. In fact, we just had a meeting a little bit ago about some budget priorities and how we could address that and how much it's going to take to address some of those things. In case you all don't know, there have been about 8 colleges of our 58 that have been hit by ransomware attacks over the last year and a half, I would say at this point. The first one happened before I got to North Carolina, and we've had several. And the largest that have been hit to this point is CPCC, and they're still digging out. And folks, it takes months and months and months to dig out of this if you can dig out of it at all. So at CPCC, they have a tremendous number of IT staff. They have a fairly good budget for all things IT and everything else because they're in Mecklenburg County. But they were hit. It crippled their learning management system, their email, their telephone system, their student information system, everything. They were having to do updates on their website because it was hosted in the cloud somewhere by someone else. So they had no other way to get messages out for a while, and they were just telling faculty and staff to stay home and work to the best of your ability. I'm not sure how they were getting any work done without email, telephone, unless they were just using their personal email to contact students and their personal phone numbers to call them. So it's a huge concern. One of the legislative priorities that I didn't mention is actually some money that's a recurring request to set up about 9 positions in around North Carolina to serve as resources on cybersecurity evaluation and all of these things. So we've made some investments that are helping with this, but it's going to take several $100,000 to put some other pieces together so that when we back data up, our backups are being scanned. And for everything that we have to do in IT, it's extraordinarily expensive. But we have that on priority listing. We're looking for how we can spend some money on that. And the best defense against cybersecurity attacks is an educated workforce. The weakest point in any IT system is you, me, us, the user. Just as, in fact, a little bit ago, Valerie sent me a text and said, don't open an email that came from XYZ college. It looks fishy. So I've reached out to them. That's the kind of defense that we have to put in place. And part of it is training so that we don't just click on something because, we go through email so quickly and it's easy to get snookered into this. So long answer to a short question, but yes, we're trying to put some things in place. Imagine, folks, I feel for CPCC, South Piedmont, Richland, others that have had to face this on top of the COVID challenge because, boy, I talk about kicking somebody when they're down. I think this is going to be a tremendous challenge for all of us going forward, but it's going to be an expensive one to address. State's trying to help, but it won't take the place of us doing some things locally.
Can Wayman talk about the conversion to the cloud too?
Yes, is Wayman or you? Where's Wayman?
What was the question, bro?
Just talking about the conversion to the cloud from local servers to the cloud-based server.
Our first priority is going to be getting colleague into the cloud. We are in cohort 3. That's supposed to be done sometime in June, July timeframe, but it's been put on hold. I believe there's about 20 colleges out of the 58 that's already in the cloud. So they're pretty much, doing 20 colleges per year, seem like. So we're supposed to be doing it this year, but right now it's kind of been put on hold, but we're getting there.
Folks, it's interesting that, the more you try to fix a cyber attack like that, a ransomware attack, the more damage you can do without some expert guidance. So Wayman and I and the other presidents and IT folks, we have sort of an emergency call list that if we realize something like that's happened, we got to call the big organizations in. We got to call the parentship in and make sure that we have all the resources available. I've said this kind of before. For some reason, all of the horror stories hit my desk or hit my email at night or on the weekend, and poor Wayman has had to endure text messages from me at all hours, basically saying, hey, did you read about so-and-so? Are we ready for that kind of attack, and how so? So, it keeps him up. I don't do it to torture Wayman. That's just a side benefit. I do it to make sure that we are trying to stay on top of it and sharing the information as it comes across my desk. And he does the same when he reads about something to share it with me as well.
Dr.
Yes.
Bagwell, one thing I want to iterate to the instructors as well is like, there are a lot of free tools out there that you can use. Be mindful what you download, because those free tools can have hidden keyloggers or malware built in. So just be mindful when you download stuff, because if you download a laptop, guess what? You bring it back on campus, then that's how they get it in. So just be mindful what you download.
Other questions or comments?
Not a question, but just to make sure everyone's aware that we will be having some student-facing activities a little bit more beginning the week after spring break. Just wanting to make sure that we're increasing engagement of our current students, also allowing prospective students the opportunity to be on campus as well. And so just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that you should be seeing an increase in the number of students on campus. And so we are targeting the weeks following spring break to have these activities.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Anything else? I don't want to keep you here and keep beating the same horse, but certainly anything that's on your mind, feel free to share and we'll try to address. We are going to be sending out, now that we've gotten questions from these town halls and some additional questions in the survey tool, send out an update to our reentry plan with some FAQs, also to share what we're thinking. And of course, it is an iterative process. What we're thinking today, as we have proven over and over, could be different tomorrow based on what happens with the number of cases, et cetera. So we are in a more positive position than we've been in a while with respect to being able to come back to campus and do some additional things. But we're not ready to put 1,000 people in the Performing Arts Center and have a graduation ceremony. We're going to still think about how we can gear up and slow this roll a little bit to make sure that we learn the lessons we can learn over the next, what will it be, 5 months or so, as we gear up for fall 2021. And by the way, in case you've lost track of it, we opened a new building in Currituck in the fall. A lot of space that we'll be able to program. And then on the heels of that, we have a new building that should be finished, substantially complete in Dare, COA Dare. In December, we should take delivery of that building, unless we get some weather delays and stuff, next January, with the idea that we will start to program that with some continuing education things in the spring and maybe some late start classes, but really be fully in there next summer. We also, you may have seen this in the newspaper, Robin Harris, Jim Davison, and I did a presentation to Pasquotank County Commission last week on the need for a nursing allied health simulation facility addition which would be somewhere, I think, in 25,000 square feet. Jim, isn't that what we're targeting right now? About a 13 to $14 million build on campus, which would allow us to do some additional programming and C building in some of the spaces that are being freed up there. So, we've got a lot of great things that are moving, but, we also don't want to open new buildings with nobody in them. And I think we're getting to the point where it's safe enough to start bringing folks back if we're mindful, if we're careful, if we're thoughtful about it, so that we're ready to go and communities can see what kind of return they're going to get on those not insignificant investments. The build in Dare County, by the way, is about $18.5 million investment. The state has $1.5 million in it. That means the county has about a $17 million investment there in the construction. It's a $20+ million build in Currituck County. We don't take all of that space, but I'd say ours is probably in the 10 million. Well, there's probably not that much. 8 million or so of that probably is COA related. It's probably much more than 20 million. I haven't seen the total cost on that, but I think the square footage is closer to 50,000 for the whole project, isn't it, Jim? Is that about right? We're not taking nearly all of that, not even half of it, about a quarter of it. So do your own math. And then again, investments in the community college, even locally, have been very impressive. You all probably know that we're raising money through the foundation to put furniture, fixtures, equipment, programming, training, resources that we can bring to bear in the bank. And people are giving 6-figure gifts to be able to name classrooms and hallways in our new building. So the support is there. We've got a lot of support, but people obviously want to see those investments paying dividends for the members of the communities that we serve. All right, so I'm not gonna keep talking now. I'm gonna stop, give you one more minute to ask questions if you have them, make comments, share concerns, and then we'll call it, because me, I'll just keep filling the time, and I don't want to not respect your time, fail to respect your time. Other questions, comments? Okay. Valerie, anything in the chat that I might have missed?
No, sir.
Well, I appreciate you all. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all that you have done and will continue to do for our students and the outcomes that we need to be about. And you guys are awesome. I appreciate it. I'd rather be here than anywhere. And I mean it, fighting the fights that we've been engaged in. And I'm so proud of what you all have done. And I look forward to seeing what you will do in the future. So let me know how I can help you. Appreciate you all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Jenna, for you.
Hi.
That's
Look
for
at that
Jenna.
puppy.
He's very cute.
There's Jen.
Oh,
Get him.
We're in
Those
South
eyes
Carolina.
look like everybody else's eyes when they first get on a Zoom meeting. What am I doing here? And how do
We're
I
in-
navigate this?
We're in your stomping ground. We're in South Carolina right now. So
Are you? Where are you?
I thought you were off. I was
yeah, I took a week off. We took some time off, but so we're in Hilton Head.
What a horrible place to spend a week.
You know what,
I
Katie?
know.
I will have to think. I don't know if you like lobster and mac and cheese, but I need to think of the restaurant. It is like the best. It's probably like $30 for your plate, but it was so good. Now I have to think of what the restaurant was.
I know. Think about it and tell us.
Yeah, I have
we're
to think about it. It was so good though. I mean, it was like amazing.
Yes.
Thank you
If
for
I can
sharing
Linus with us.
Yeah, I know. Jenna was like, "Where are you?" I was like, "Well, here's the dog. He's right here."